So, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Joe with Jonose Cigars. This is going to be my first ever cigar maker interview, and I am very, very, very pleased to have none other than Jon Huber of Crowned Heads Cigars. I want to welcome Jon to the stream. Thank you, sir, for giving us your time. I really do appreciate you.
My pleasure, man. My pleasure. It's fun.
So, today I'm going to be lighting up one that I have not had yet by you, and that is the Mil Diaz Edición Limitada in 2021.
Nice.
Obviously, I've had the Mil Diaz in just about every Vitola except for this one.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta say, it's probably my favorite daytime smoke going into this. It's just one of these so nicely balanced blends that, I mean, you can really grab any time of the day, but I just love it in the middle of the day.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is one of those anytime blends. I really think that you can enjoy it with a cup of coffee in the morning, or with a whiskey or whatever you want after dinner, what have you. But yeah, and I'm very, very thrilled with that the track record on that cigar for sure.
Yeah. Now, 2021 has been a pretty prolific year blend wise for Crowned Heads. I mean, you guys have had a number of new releases coming out. Not all of them being limited either. I mean, obviously you had the Las Calaveras coming out very soon. You had the newest edition of the Capa Especial, and then of course you have this new Vitola for the Mil Diaz, and then the Lost Angel. So
yeah,
it's
been busy, man. We actually, I'm looking in the conference room now, and I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've had 6 LEs since January of 2021. So
wow.
Juarez Shots, Le Carême Bellicoso Fino, the 50th anniversary project I did for JR, Escogidos, which is what you're smoking, Lost Angel, and then of course Las Calaveras, which came and went last Wednesday very quickly.
Now, when you're talking about Las Calaveras, was that something you had always intended to be a yearly release, or did that just kind of happen as it went along?
No, it was always going to be planned that way. What I didn't plan was how it would take off going back to 2014. I mean, 2014, we just did 1,000 boxes of 3 Vitolas. It was 72,000 cigars, and that was it. And then I was going to do, in 2015, but we didn't realize what it would grow to become over the last 7 years.
Yeah.
It kind of took on a life of its own, where I actually last year intentionally pulled back and reduced the production back to original numbers. And then last year sold out in like 2.5 days during the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, let's go up a little bit more, but not up to what 2019 levels were, which were like about 135,000 cigars.
Yeah.
So we brought it up to close to 100,000 total cigars, and sold out in about 4 hours. So
jeez.
Yeah,
that's unreal.
Yeah, I felt like Ticketmaster.
Now, plenty of people have heard your story in the cigar industry, but there are a lot of people on my channel who are newer to the industry, new to cigar smoking in general. A lot of young cigar smokers, which I'm really happy about. Always like to get younger cigar smokers into this lifestyle.
Right.
But talk a little bit about your history with CAO Cigars and what it was that eventually prompted you to go on with Mike Conder to start Crowned Heads.
So I started with CAO April 15th, 1996. And that was my entree into the premium cigar industry. And it's something that I really sought out. I didn't answer a want ad or anything like that. It's something that through soul searching and all that, it's something that I really wanted to get my foot in the door. And I was just very fortunate to get that opportunity with CAO back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the trajectory of CAO started from we started in Jono's basement. I mean, that's literally where we started. And then, 10 years, 12 years later, it had grown into this worldwide brand, and we were on The Sopranos, HBO, all these crazy things happened so quickly. And then eventually the company was sold to Henry Wintermans. Henry Wintermans was acquired by Swedish Match. Swedish Match had General Cigar, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So that led to my exit from CAO in 2010, December 17th. And then on December 21st of 2010, Mike and I took our first meeting together to start planning what would eventually become Crowned Heads, which was announced in February of 2011. We started shipping in November of 2011. So this coming November, technically, I guess, would be, our 10-year anniversary of shipping product. But And what prompted me was unemployment. Essentially.
Pretty good prompt.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of gives you a little bit of desperation creates motivation. But
sure.
Honestly, it wasn't even that kind of a thing. It wasn't, I was actually offered a position with the new CAO, going to Virginia and Richmond to work under Jonose Cigar Company. And I didn't even have a hesitation of turning it down. I was like, no. And I didn't even know what I was going to do afterwards. I just turned it down because I knew what I didn't want to do, and I didn't want to work for a big corporation.
Sure.
And, then I just figured I'm just going to ride this wave all the way to the shore and see what happens. And during that last year, Mike kind of approached me and kind of gave me the nudge and said, hey, do you want to do something when this is over? I'm like, yeah, but not knowing what it was. So, excuse me. So not knowing what it was, but I was kind of my thing was be loyal to who brought you to the dance. And Mike and I had a very good relationship professionally and as friends as well. And so it was a very easy decision to make, to be honest with you.
Now you have worked with a number of just iconic cigar blenders in their own right for collaborations and just on regular production, whether it be Drew Estate or EP Carrillo. More recently, I suppose, you've been working a lot with Pichardo. How did you come to a relationship with Pichardo?
So that relationship goes back to 2017 at the trade show, which was, I don't remember if it was IPCPR or PCA at the time. But anyway, the big show. Sure. We had gone to that show, and we had just hired a new national sales manager, Miguel Shodell, who he and I had worked together at CAO for many years. And I had actually been trying to get Miguel to work for Crowned Heads at least on 2 different occasions. On the 3rd occasion, he finally said yes. So we go to the trade show, and he said, hey, I got some friends here that I want you to meet. They made some samples for you. They want you to check out. And this happens all the time at the trade show. That's part of the networking thing. And you kind of you get samples thrown at you. And for the most part, you put them in your bag, you go home, and you kind of, sweep it under the rug more or less. But now those particular samples just visually caught my eye, and I'm like, okay. So I met Iradio and I met Luciano at the show. The next morning I came back to the floor and I went back to this slider bag and I opened them up. I'm like, man, these cigars look so good. So I started smoking them and I'm like, man, there's something here. And something clicked. I'm like, there's some potential. If these guys can make cigars on a regular basis as good as these samples are, I think we could do something. So we started messing around with different things, and long story short, our first release with them became Juarez in 2019. So to backtrack a little bit more, about 2018, I guess, our distributor in Germany asked me to do an exclusive for Germany. And I would send them samples and they'd be like, no, I don't like this. No, I don't like this. And it was like, okay, what do you want, right? So they said, well, we want something like Jericho Hill. I said, okay. So I went back to Luciano and Iradio and I said, hey, can you just give me a shot at do your own riff on Jericho Hill. I don't want to art direct it. I don't want to tell you what's in it. Just let me know. Send me the sample. I sent them off to Germany. I think they're fantastic. Germany, once again. And I'm like, okay, fuck. Really, I put everything on the back burner with Germany, and so I had this blend in my back pocket, so to speak. And then Mike Honder came to me towards the end of that 2018 and said, hey, we've got an opportunity to do a catalog exclusive with Thompson Cigar. And I said, well, I've got a great blend that I've been sitting on, and I think this cigar is fantastic. And so that became Juarez. They get it like in October of 18, do absolutely nothing with it. They ended up getting acquired by Cigars International. Wow. Now I'm convinced that it's just sitting in a warehouse on a pallet somewhere, in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So I'm like, damn, it's breaking my heart because I know this can do something. So right before the trade show of 2019, I tell Mike, I said, look, they've had an 8-month run of it. Let's just take this. We have no signed contract. They've done nothing with it. Let's sell it. Let's open it up. So we went to that trade show, and literally with like no sales collateral, nothing. We just had samples. I just told the guys, I said, hand these out to your customers and see what they think. And it just took off from there. And Juarez became a huge hit. So that was our first foot in the door with Tabacalera Pichardo. And ironically, now I go back and the Germany guy sells a ton of Juarez in Germany now. So I said, you realize this is the same blend. And yeah. Okay, whatever. But so going back to the very first samples that caught my eye, this was something in 2017 that we started messing around with. And I said, there's something here. We just, we'd put it on the back burner. We work on it. They'd send me more samples and whatever. They were very easy to work with and this and that. And so January of 2020, Luciano sends me a text and says, hey, I think I've got something really special here, and that became Mil Diaz. So Mil Diaz gets launched truly like virally. I mean, we haven't had it at a trade show or anything. And we started shipping that in September of 2020. And here we are less than a year later, and it's our number one selling brand. Sure. It's just taken off like crazy.
Yeah, piggybacking on that, the name of Mil Diaz, I mean, obviously the name has a great significance to the fact that how many days and individuals that it takes to get a cigar put together. Do you think the name Mil Diaz, because of the significance of that, the fact that people who are in the know in the cigar world, they know how much time and care goes into making a cigar, do you think just the name of that cigar had something to do with just how successful it was, at least to get people's attention?
Not really. I really don't. I mean, I think it checks a lot of boxes in terms of a nice story, the presentation, the branding, and of course the blend, and I've always been of the opinion that like you could put a cigar in a brown paper bag with a hand stamp on it, and if it's good, people are going to find it. And my case that I make for that argument is, I go back to 2003, and we were at a trade show in Nashville, ironically, and Pete Johnson and I had been friends since 1996. And so I'd always go up to him and say, hey, what's good to smoke? And we just kind of, bond that way. And Pete said, here, smoke one of these. And he had this plain cabinet box with unbanded cigars, nothing, and just gave me the cigar. And I cut it and I lit it. And I was like, damn, this is fucking amazing, right? And I said, what is this? He said, this is my cigar. It's called Tatuaje. And so that, obviously what happened with that is history. But it just, if you look back, it was a cigar with a name that's hard to pronounce. It was expensive for the time. It was made in Miami, had a plain paper band. It wasn't, flashy by any stretch of the imagination, but the cigar was so good that to me, it changed the whole game going forward. And that convinced me that like, it's not about packaging. It's not about anything other than if you get a really good cigar out there and people try it, it's going to catch on. And I think that's what happened with Mil Diaz more than anything.
Now, when you come to actually making a blend, this might seem like a trite question, but when you make a blend, how involved are you in the process? Do you have an idea for what a cigar should be and you try to pursue that? Or are you always experimenting and then happen upon things that you say, oh my God, this is something we've got to continue with?
So just to be completely transparent, I couldn't roll a cigar if you put a gun to my head. I'm not gonna be this guy to sit here and go, hey, I'm a master blender and all this nonsense. I'm like, I'm basically like the validator. I know I've got a decent palate and I know what I'm looking for, and I know a little bit enough about tobacco that certain regions are going to give you this, certain regions are going to give you that. I have enough to get a jumping off point, but in terms of the final blends and the composition thereof, that's completely like a Luciano, Pichardo, Jaime Garcia, Ernesto Perez Carrillo. Those are the magicians when it comes to that. Like if I have a toothache, I'm not going to pull my tooth. I'm going to go to the dentist, right?
Right.
So I'm smart enough to know that. So the way I envision my role with Crowned Heads is I kind of say I'm more like a creative director, like of a fashion house, more or less, where like I know what I'm looking for, and I have very talented people that I'm fortunate to work with that can bring that vision to fruition, whether it be, apparel or cigars or what have you. So yeah, I don't blend anything. I just kind of know what I want ultimately in my head, and I know what I want the starting off point to be. So typically, like, I'll send that directive and then I'll get samples and I'll be like, I like this, but let's do this. Let's take this out. Maybe. And I'm still learning the process. I mean, like there's certain things that I want that like, okay, wait a second, that's not realistic in that ring gauge because we're going to have to take that VISO out and replace it with this. So, it's always a work in progress, but yeah, I don't blend anything. I don't make anything. I just validate things.
Yeah.
That's
Do you
the honest truth.
Do you find that there's a particular tobacco varietal that you just keep coming back to, that just it always does it for you, or is there always something that's new?
It's always something new. It really is. Like, for instance, with Mil Diaz, like, I'd never used Peruvian or Costa Rican tobaccos in any of our blends to this point. But at the very end, when that final sample came in, I didn't even look at the components. I just smoked it. I'm like, this is special.
Yeah.
Then I come to find out, oh, there's Peruvian and then there's Costa Rican tobaccos in it. Yeah. And then it worked.
Which is surprising me, because I've been seeing a lot more Costa Rican and Peruvian tobaccos in a lot of mainstream stuff now.
Yeah.
Which 10 years ago, you didn't see much of that. And that's really starting to make some inroads, and they're incredible. I mean, the flavors that you're getting out of these, it makes you wonder why we hadn't been doing it earlier.
Well, when you use them in the right combinations and the right ratios, it makes all the difference in the world. Yeah. But if you were to smoke something like a Costa Rican Puro or a Peruvian Puro, it may not hit your palate the same way as that combination of tobaccos, that ratio of wrapper binder fillers. So there's a lot of experimentation that goes along with it too. But, you know, again, going back to my boy Pete, you know, he told me once in 2014, he's like, you know, when you start with really good tobaccos, our job as brand owners is just not to fuck it up. Because if you got good tobacco to start with, which we're fortunate that we do, then it's, you know, that's more than half of the battle.
Yeah. Now, were there any blends that Crowned Heads had released that I don't want to say you just had low expectations of, but was there anything that the public's response to just surprised you?
Las Calaveras, for sure. You know, I mean, I thought, when we finalized the blend for the 14 back in January of 14, like, you know, I thought it was a good cigar, and I didn't think it was like the Holy Grail or it was going to become a unicorn or anything like that. In fact, I thought the 15 was better than the 14, and Jaime told me the same thing. He goes, "This is better than last year's," and it sales wise and perception wise, it did not pan out to be that way. But yeah, that Las Calaveras totally took me by surprise. I didn't think it was going to do what it did. And there's other cigars that I thought would do better that didn't do as well, you know, so it's a double-edged sword.
It's interesting how that pans out. Now, you're based in Nashville. You have a pretty lengthy history as far as Nashville in your own life. Can you talk a little bit about significance of Nashville to you and to the brand of Crowned Heads?
Well, I mean, Nashville has been home. I mean, I've lived, you know, I grew up in San Francisco. I lived in there until I was like 17, moved to LA, went to college there. But as far as the most time in one place, it's been Nashville. So by default, I call Nashville home. So I'm very loyal to Nashville. People in Nashville have been very good to us. And there's so much creative influence here too. It's you know, it's a special place to me. It always will be. You know, and that's why when they gave me the opportunity to move to Richmond, Virginia, I was like, no, man, there's no way you're going to pull me out of here. There's no way. So it's very important to me.
Now, going into just personal preferences, is there a Vitola that you're partial to?
Oh, absolutely. Like my Desert Island cigar will be a 5 5/8 by 46. And ironically, I think Corona Gorda, actually, it's kind of, that's what the old Cuban Corona Gorda. I mean, now in the domestic market, like Corona Gorda to people like 6 by 50, 6 by 52. Yeah. It's kind of crazy. I've seen Toros be 6 by 54. That's more of a beefy Toro. Yeah, but no, true Corona Gorda, like the Cubans, is 5 5/8 46. That's my favorite go-to size. And you know, that was one of the first 4 sizes of 4 kicks when we started back in 11. And I've tried to keep that size consistent in a lot of things that we do, but in some instances it just doesn't work as well with the blend. But that's definitely my favorite size. I'm not by any stretch of the imagination a large ring gauge guy. And when you see stuff north of 52, it's mostly entirely because there's a need for that. There's a guy that wants to smoke a 54 or 56, but I always said I would never do a 60. And our national sales manager a few years ago was bugging me so much to do a 60 ring gauge cigar. And we did as an LE, and I'll never do it again.
Well, it's funny because I can attest to the fact that size Vitola really is, in a lot of ways, ideal for getting optimum flavor balance out of blends. for example, the La Coalición, the first time I had it, I think, in either a Toro and a Robusto, one of those two.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember much about that smoking experience. Then I had it in the Corona Gorda, and that was what made it shoot to my top 10 for that year, because that particular Vitola, the flavor experience was so different.
Yeah.
And I guess it's just a higher ratio of wrapper and binder to filler. I don't know the burn rate, perhaps. All I know was it was remarkably different and better when it was in the Corona Gorda size. So
I think, to me, I've always just kind of, my theory has been like the larger ring gauges diffuse the flavor profile,
sure.
and it's not as intense and focused.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's a different consumer that smokes a 60 or a 70 or, you know, I think it's the guy that smokes a stogie as opposed to a cigar. That's what I say. You know, it's like some of these guys will take a 6x60, cut it in half. I've seen it, and then they smoke half of it one day. And I'm like, okay.
I had a coworker who used to do that.
it's a bang for the buck guy, and that's not our customer. I mean, God bless them, they're out there, and I know Asylum does huge numbers, and there's a lot of stuff in that category, but that's just not our lane. So I don't even try to go in it.
Yeah. Now, is there a drink pairing of choice that you find yourself going back to, or is that another one of those things where it's like it's so unique to the blend that I'm smoking at the time?
That's a very easy question to answer. Coffee and water, because honestly, I don't drink. I'm like the guy in my industry, I think, that doesn't drink. You know, somebody can get on here and talk about whiskeys and bourbons, and unfortunately or fortunately, I stopped drinking spirits back in 2010, and then I stopped drinking beer and wine back in 2019. So,
wow,
yeah, man, it's just
good for you.
I got too good at it, and they retired my jersey. I had to retire from the game, man. That's 100%
That's a fair enough answer.
That's the truth. I mean, we used to, back in the day, I mean, stories on stories from CAO days, and it just got to be too much part and parcel of what we did, you know, and I had to stop. Simple as that.
I get it. I completely get it. Now, on the consumer level, and also on just the manufacturer level, are there trends you're seeing in the industry that are just building that you see Crowned Heads having to respond to?
No, I mean, I honestly, I don't really pay attention to the trends as much. I just kind of keep my blinders on, because I think if you're following trends, you're never at the front of the line. You got to, you know, like if somebody last year said you're going to do a double Corona cigar, they'd be like, oh, that'll never sell. You know, look at the numbers, look at the statistics. It's guys want this and guys want that. They don't want a double Corona. Well, guess what? We just did an Escogidos, which is technically a double Corona, and it sold out in a day. So if you're constantly cognizant of trends and you're following trends, you're just going to be one of the masses, and you're never going to do anything original. So
and your originality is kind of been, I think, the key ingredient to Crowned Heads' success, is that people see Crowned Heads as the trendsetter. I mean, people are kind of taking cues, I think, from Crowned Heads in a lot of ways.
Perhaps, but I mean, look, you know, again, another Pete Johnson quote, but like we didn't reinvent the wheel. It's like the Cubans invented the wheel, and we're just trying to take it and put our fingerprints on it a little bit. And, you know, look, they were doing double Coronas, Hoya de Monterrey double Corona, which inspired the Escogidos. You know, the history's there. It's the blueprint's there. It's just how you take it and use it. Nobody's doing anything original these days. It's all the original ideas are shot. It's just how you reinterpret those original ideas is what makes you your own original.
Did you see yourself doing anything? I mean, did you find yourself having to do anything different with last year with the whole COVID situation and how that really did change things? In a lot of ways, I feel like cigar smokers started smoking more during COVID.
I think so. I mean, in retrospect, as much as it sucked, I kind of feel like COVID was tailor-made for me, because I don't travel. That's kind of like I've put my foot in the stand or whatever, and I just said, look, I'm not doing in-store events. I just don't do it. And so my life didn't really change much during COVID, you know, other than working from home as opposed to the office for, you know, 6 or 7 months. But I didn't do anything any differently, you know. In fact, we released probably as many new things last year as we are going to this year, and we've kind of done the same blueprint all along. It's just for whatever reason, people are now kind of becoming aware of it and paying attention. I guess just kind of like It's like that 10-year overnight success story kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, the only thing different that we did is, you know, the guys all worked from home.
Yeah.
And which kind of, not just us, but everybody in the industry kind of opened our eyes to the fact that, okay, do we really need to pay to have a sales team on the road, in stores, hotels, planes, trains, automobiles, when we're getting as good or better results from just everybody being home? So that was interesting to see that happen, because, you know, look, when March hit last year, we were all kind of scrambling on, damn, are we going to be able to, you know, and our whole goal was, let's just keep everybody gainfully employed, keep everybody's benefits going, all that. And the mantra for the entire year was no goose eggs. I would always tell the guys, no goose eggs. Like, even if you sell a box, you won today. You know, just have that mindset. A year later, now we're like on, you know, we're selling, you know, 100,000 cigars in 4 hours. It's just, it's amazing. It's just, I don't know. So
I want to talk a little bit about some of the blends that you guys have coming out this year. Most notably, the one that's intrigued me the most is the Fallen Angel. And
Lost Angel. You're right. It was going to be the Fallen Angel. And then at the 11th hour, I had to change it, because this industry, I don't know if you know or not, but it's incredibly litigious.
Yes.
There are people
I've come to find that out this last year.
It's such a small industry, but yet people will register things and they go, oh, I got that. I'm like, well, did you ever create a cigar with that name? No, but I registered that.
But I had an idea once that I haven't done anything with.
Right. Yeah. So we had released the news that the Fallen Angel last year, and somebody from a company called me and said, you know, hey, you know, we'll license the name to you. And I said, well, you can go fuck yourself. I'm going to change the name. And I did.
So what is the name mean? Like, what is this?
So this is all the TAA exclusive, right? So the TAA is back in 2014. We'd just barely been in business, and they asked us to be part of the TAA. They wanted me to do an exclusive cigar for them. That was the Angel's Anvil. And so I created, and that's an acronym for TAA, the Angel's Anvil. So I created this whole backstory that has all these Easter eggs in the story about, and it kind of was a parallel to my career and my life and everything. And, you know, we can go down that rabbit hole, but it takes forever. So my idea for the Fallen Angel, which became the Lost Angel, was to do kind of a prequel to that. And this is before the angel forges his wings and ascends again. He is in this dark space, hence the box being like, you know, murdered out, all black, the band being black and everything like that. So that it's all a TAA exclusive. Again, we only did 1,000 boxes, 20,000 cigars, and that was it. It was sold out. So
how important is replication ability to you when you come up with a blend? Because, I mean, obviously limited editions, there's only so many you can do. And I mean, when you approach a limited edition, I mean, you're just like, well, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. I have no intention of replicating this again.
Correct. I mean, we did it once. We replicated the 2014 Las Calaveras blend, and it became La Imperiosa as its own, right?
Which is one of my staples in my humidor now.
I love that cigar. To this day, I love that cigar. But ironically, when we released that in 2015, I got a tremendous back. I thought we were going to be like, oh, people are going to love this because they really wanted more Las Calaveras. Well, but it was quite the opposite. I got a lot of backlash and
really?
A lot of, I really did. People were like, so it's just weird, like gray market in cigar collecting, I guess, where people like will buy stuff and then try to resell it. And I didn't know that. And so I got all these messages about like, oh, my 2014 Las Calaveras are worthless now because you released this blend. And I'm like, what? We're making cigars for you to smoke, not to. Right.
Yeah, we're not a collectible maker.
Yeah. So that was interesting. So that's the only time we really replicated a blend per se, or repurposed a blend. We may take a blend and modify it and use it for something else. But for the most part, when I do a one and done, it's just truly one and done, you know?
Yeah. And I like that element to Crowned Heads, is because it really does lessen the perception of cigars being a commodity as opposed to more of an artisanal thing, which is, and that's a special thing. In this day and age, commodities are a dime a dozen, and there's nothing remarkable or memorable about those.
True.
And it's the same thing that annoys me with people always living behind a camera screen, is they're always trying to replicate an experience that they had at one time instead of just being in the moment and just having that experience.
Bingo. Yeah. Stay in the moment.
You treasure
Absolutely.
that in your mind.
I agree. I think it is. It's look, I mean, cigars are just one of these things that they're a consumable product, but the reason why we do it is because hopefully at some point it adds a little enjoyment, relaxation, peace, whatever it is, a meditative quality to somebody's day. You know, if it's doing that for somebody and improving their quality of life, then, you know, we won. So it's not, I don't do these things so that people can sit on them for 10 years and then turn around and flip them. It's like, there's stocks for that, right? I mean, as far as I know.
So looking ahead, this might be too much of a prying question, so just let me know if so. Looking ahead,
season.
What sort of things are we going to be able to look forward to from Crowned Heads moving forward?
Well, we just put Las Calaveras to bed. It'll start shipping next month. And then what's today? Monday, Wednesday, we're announcing the details on our PCA exclusive cigar, which, not to confuse matters, but basically we were like one of 9 companies that the PCA contacted last year and said, hey, would you do an exclusive cigar that's only for attendees so that we can try to get more people to the show? Yeah. So we said, okay. Initially, I was just going to do like one size of our new line for that purpose. But then, you know, I kind of thought about it, like, let's do something special and let's create something special for that show. So we'll be announcing that on Wednesday, and then probably Thursday morning, we'll start, you know, some sort of a social media tease about the new standalone line that we're going to be releasing at the trade show, which will be our 3rd brand out of Tabacalera Pichardo. I can tell you that much. And this is a cigar that we had the blend last year again. And I thought there's something about this blend. I feel it in my bones, and start messing around with it in different sizes and whatever. And once we got that down, I was like, okay, now what does this cigar speak to me? What's the story? Why does it have to exist? And that is all going to be revealed in the next 3 weeks, I guess. So that'll be next. And then, you know, we get back and, you know, we got to start launching that brand, obviously. And then there's probably a couple more things to do as far as LEs go. We'll probably have another Mil Diaz LE. And then we'll have something towards the end of the year. We'll also have, I'm working on another Paniolo for 2021 for my brothers in Hawaii. And what else? I'm looking at the table. I'm like, I got this all written out on a buck slip. Yeah, it's just, when I set this out in January, I'm like, I can't believe we're going to try to do all this shit. Yeah.
Well, that's always good. It always pushes the envelope a little bit.
Try to. Yeah. And it's, you can always have a great plan, but when you're dealing with something that's an agricultural product, basically, there's always twists and turns to it, you know? So you kind of have to be flexible on that too. Yeah.
So looking at trade shows like PCA, I've noticed in recent years a number of brands kind of dropping out of participation at PCA, but you guys have stuck with it. Obviously, you see some value in these trade shows. And you talk a little bit about why you think trade shows like this are so vital to the industry.
Well, I mean, you know, objectively speaking, you could say that trade shows are kind of becoming passé. I mean, let's just be real. It's like print media. I've watched the evolution and de-evolution of print media over the years. And, you know, when I got into the business, Cigar Aficionado magazine was like, that was it. That was the only way you got your message out, was Cigar Aficionado, right? And obviously now, 20 some odd years later, that's changed so much. Now you have the advent of social media. I can hit a button on my phone and release a story for free, as opposed to waiting for 2 months, right?
Right.
I think trade shows are kind of going through that right now too. It's like, obviously, because during COVID we were able to do so much virtually.
Yeah.
Do you really need to you know, get a freight truck to pick up everything and then fly all your guys out and set up a booth? Probably don't. But I still have that old school mentality where this is a relationship driven business, and there's nothing like being face to face with somebody and smoking a cigar with them and talking and connecting. And, you know, I believe it's a viable component of what we do. So yeah, I think it's important to support our industry as a whole. Like, if you don't care enough to go and spend the money to go do a trade show to support your industry, then why are you doing this? You know? Exactly. That's my opinion. So I mean, I know there's companies that don't agree with it, but I think there's a lot of political stuff behind the scenes of why
Sure.
some of those companies are not doing the trade show.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, from where we stand, it's like, yeah, I want to be. I'm looking forward to it. I haven't seen my friends and my colleagues and people in 2 years.
Sure.
It's like that. This is always kind of like one of my few times to go out there and connect with people, and so I'm excited. I mean, I haven't even been in the same room with our sales guys since 2019.
Wow.
So, I'm excited for it. So for these other guys to, piss all over the trade show and, sit in the corner and pout, fine, go ahead. Yeah. But again, if you don't care enough about your industry as a whole to go and spend a week in the desert and fucking let's talk to some people, then I don't think you should be doing this personally.
Yeah. And I feel like that in-person interaction with not only people in the industry, but consumers too. I mean, that does go a long way. People remember these sort of things, and especially in today's atmosphere of everything's on social media now, where it's almost reached a critical max where people, I think, are starting to really crave actual human interaction now.
I believe so.
Cigars has always been a huge facilitator of that.
I mean, why do guys go? I mean, why do guys go to cigar stores to smoke?
Yeah.
Because there's that camaraderie, there's that brotherhood, there's that. It's like the barbershop of the 21st century.
Right.
It's about human interaction. It's the cigar is the common denominator to start conversations between a doctor and a plumber. You know what I mean? All that stuff doesn't matter. You're smoking a cigar. You're talking about the cigar. Then you're building friendships, and to me that's just so important. The human interaction of the whole thing. And I don't understand the mentality of these guys that won't go and do that. I mean, when they announced the potential of, I remember, what was it called? Cigar Con or something. It was a terrible name, but they were gonna have all the consumers come in, and like, man, it got so much backlash. Like all these people are like, oh no, we don't want consumers here, and
no, this is like backlash from people in the industry, then.
In the industry and the bloggers and all these people were like just pissing all over. I'm like, why the fuck wouldn't we want? I would love to have as many people as we could possibly see and shake hands with in 3.5 days. I would absolutely relish that opportunity. It's just like, I don't understand. It just seems very contrary to me. I would love to meet as many people as I could in that course. So if they ever do allow consumers in, I'm all for it. I already went on record as saying I was for it back when they were proposing it. But
how long ago was that idea broached?
That was like, I want to say 18 or 19. And then obviously the 2020 show got canceled, but they had canceled the idea of Cigar Con, Consumer Con, or whatever it was, prior to the trade show even being canceled. So I don't even know if that's in the works, if it would happen, but I think it's a great idea. I mean, look at the music industry. You can sell music on SoundCloud and Spotify all day long, but why do artists still tour? Because they want to connect with people. They want, you know what I mean? It's like they want that direct interaction. This business to me is no different. I think it's important to have that.
Yeah. Now, I obviously did a lot of reading on you and have been for some time because I've always been intrigued by the Crowned Heads brand.
Thank you.
But you mentioned something a number of times of your list of priorities in your life. And it really struck a chord with me because you put a huge emphasis on God and family. And that, to me, that as a dad myself, that just it holds huge weight. Talk a little bit about those priorities in your life and how that kind of guides you in what you do.
It's simple. It's just like you do a little soul searching. What really matters to you? And to me, I put God first, wife second, family third, business fourth. And when you have that hierarchy or those values established, it's very easy to make decisions going forward.
Yes.
And so if something doesn't line up for 1, 2, and 3, then I'm not going to do 4.
Right.
It's just the way I've chosen to live my life. It's just the way I don't, it's not like it's convenient here to do it yet. No, it's got to line up with those things. And it's like in this day and age, it's almost like it's taboo to talk about like your faith or, the fact that you're, it's almost uncool to be a believer. It's uncool to like, be loyal to your wife. And but I'm sorry, that's my thing. It's like, you don't have to buy into it, but that's how I choose to live my life. And it's how I make my decisions going forward. And, it's like, I remember when I was dating my wife 11 years ago, you know, we decided to get married, and she says, we just were very upfront. She's like, I'll do it, but I don't want you to have to travel like you've been traveling. Cause back in CAO, I was doing all these shows, and we were doing the CAO rock and roll thing and the whole bit. And I was like, one city to the next, and, you know, make sure my bottle was there when I was waiting to get there with the next rep. And it was a little bit chaotic. And so, you know, when I met Laura, it was just like, it just changed my priorities and changed my life. And I just said, okay. And I've never wavered from it since.
Yeah. And kids will have a way of fortifying your priorities real fast.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've got a son who's in college, and I've got a daughter that we adopted. She'll be turning 6 in July.
Congratulations.
Thank you. She's a trade show baby. She was born July 12, 2015. And ironically, you know, what people don't understand about the adoptive experience is that, unlike your natural birth experience, you don't have time to prep for things. You don't know up until the very last minute. You can't go
really
by.
know. Yeah.
You don't know. And, you know, even like getting her and getting, you know, we didn't have a car seat, right? Because they wouldn't let us do any of that stuff. So long story short, I had to go. We went down to the hospital where she was born. We were part of all of that. It was an amazing experience. I'm like, then like literally 24 hours later, I had to get in a rent-a-car, drive from there all the way to New Orleans, do the show. I'm on cloud 9. And I'm like, you know, then I had to drive back from the trade show, go back to a hotel and stay with my wife and our daughter for 2 weeks before they let us out of the state.
Wow.
It was crazy. But like every year she's been, you know, her birthday's always happened during a trade show, which this year will be no different.
Right.
So it's amazing, man. But it's a cool experience. So I would never change it.
For sure. Well, Jon, I want to thank you again for putting aside the time. I thought this was some really good stuff. I really appreciate your insight. Before we go, a little last question here. Obviously, you talked about Pete Johnson and his significance in the industry and you personally. Are there any other blenders out there today, or even in the past, that aren't even active anymore? Are there any that you take inspiration from when you do your line of work?
No slam on Pete, but I don't take inspiration necessarily from Pete. I think the industry, you know, people term the boutique industry, you know, and I kind of go, well, I don't think there'd be a boutique industry if it wasn't for Pete, because prior to Tatuaje, it was Macanudo, it was, you know, all the little household names and everything. To me, he really changed the game. And you know, to that point, you know, then you can go to the Tony Baranis from Bahia. He changed the game a little bit, you know. Obviously, working with Ernie, the Godfather Boutique Cigars. He's one of those guys too. But I mean, I don't know. I don't really take inspiration directly from other people. Again, I don't want to follow, and I don't want to be a biter, because I think there's enough of those guys in this industry today that have come along and that they kind of go, they do something, and you go, wait a second, I liked it the first time when it was called, you know what I mean? So if you're going to take something, make it your own. Don't take it and just replicate it and then say that you came up with this idea. But look, I've got tons of respect for everybody in the business, and have developed some really great friendships, like with Pete, you know, and I'm very fortunate in that regard. I kind of look at like CAO was my undergrad degree, you know, working there for, what was it, 96 to 2010. And then now I'm working on my graduate degree a little bit, but you never stop learning, man. That's what's great about this business. You really never stop. And as soon as you feel like you know everything, it's probably a good time to get out of it, because there's no way you know everything.
Right.
You know,
that is something that has always amazed me about this industry, is just the depth of knowledge that's possessed by so many different individuals, and just the level of information that's out there that there's no way anyone in a single lifetime or multiple lifetimes could absorb it all. No. There's so much, and there's so much that we're discovering on the regular that no one knew about before.
What's been 100%, but what's been, from my own experience, it's been really cool working with different, you know, we've worked with Ernie, we've worked with the Garcias, we work with Pichardo, we've worked with Drew Estate, and every time it's a different experience, and everybody has their own little tricks of the trade. And you just learn so much through each person. You kind of absorb all that, you know. Like I remember, you know, going for the first time down to the Dominican and working. Once Ernie said, yeah, he'll do something with us, his whole directive was, okay, you're going to come down here and you're going to go through the tobaccos, you're going to pick, you're going to validate, he literally said, if this works, congratulations. If it doesn't work, it's your fault, not mine. So so he was very clear about it. And I remember learning things, from him that I hadn't learned in the first, 12 years of working in the business, like just like how to really get the gist of a leaf, just taking one leaf and like burning it and inhaling it and getting the essence. It was just like, I felt like a complete novice working with Ernesto. And so, and to this day, every factory is different. I remember going into the Garcia's factory, my father's cigars, for the first time, and they're giving me the cook's tour in 2014. And I remember seeing in the aging room, all the aging rooms I'd visited before that, they would have the ruedas, the wheels facing like this. All the cigars were in, right. Well, I noticed that in my father, they were all vertical instead of horizontal. And it stood out to my mind. I'm like, Jaime, why is this? And he's like, well, he goes, if you're trying to get all the ammonia and all of the bad stuff out of the cigar while it's aging, why would you have it sitting like this? Because it's just going to go straight this way because of gravity. Right. So he had all his like that. I'm like, damn, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. But little things like that is just kind of like, I was like, oh man, that's amazing. You just pick those little gems out and you just kind of like, that's what keeps me going. Is learning all that stuff along the way. And it's an ongoing ride. It's an ongoing education. I love the industry as a whole. It's really good people.
Yeah, and I'm with you on there. I feel some of the best people I ever meet are the ones that are in the industry, or at the very least, just lovers of cigars. My best conversations have always been with cigar smokers, and oftentimes it's with complete strangers at a lounge that I just start shooting the breeze with.
If you think about it, and I always say this, give me one, or give me three, or one industry where everything is still made completely by hand, no machines, from start to finish. When I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life back in the day, I was intrigued with wine and cigars. And then going to Northern California and taking tours of wineries, I'm like, they use a shit ton of machinery in there for, you know what I mean? A lot. Yeah. So it's
almost by necessity too. I mean,
it's And then, but cigars, there's nothing. I mean, from the time it's a seed to it's being planted, it's harvested, it's cultivated, it's fermented, it's bunched, it's rolled, it's processed. Everything is just done and that's what sucked me into the industry. It's just the romance and the tradition of a craft that really hasn't changed in hundreds of years. It's done the exact same way. Yeah. And there's not a lot of stuff like that now in this day and age.
Not really. Well, Jon, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for sitting down with us today. Best of wishes to Crowned Heads. I've always been a huge fan.
Thank you. I like the t-shirt. I like the shirt.
Yeah, I have someone very generous sent this one to me. So I was
there you go.
And you actually sent me, when you sent me this t-shirt, you also sent me an unbanded version of this year's Capa Especial with the Perfecto.
Did I really?
I did not know what it was. You just said, here, tell me what you think about this cigar. And I did an Instagram write-up of it and absolutely loved it. So I am really, really looking forward to the market release.
It's literally, if I took this and I flipped it around and went out that door, it's being shipped now. The very first boxes are.
I'm excited. I'm excited. I can't wait.
It's good, man. It's been sitting there in the aging room since we started that project late last year.
Wow.
So yeah, but Ernie is he's crushed right now. I mean, when you get when you have a pandemic and you shut down, right, and then you slowly get back up to speed, then all of a sudden, boom, you get Cigar of the Year from Cigar Aficionado. It has a way of throwing a wrench into your production schedule. So
it does.
It took us a while.
Thank you again. I really appreciate it. You are kind of an inspiration to me because of your originality. You're a master brander. You really do a great job getting your brand out. And that's another thing you've mentioned in the past about, the branding is important. The integrity of your brand is a big deal to you. Even to people who aren't necessarily super cigar smokers, they'll recognize Crowned Heads as a quality brand, not only in marketing, but in their execution.
I hope so. That was always the goal. We wanted to be more than just about cigars. We wanted to be an aspirational brand. And I might get kicked around a lot, but I use Harley as an example. Like Harley Davidson has built an aspirational brand where even if you don't ride a bike, you still aspire to that lifestyle. You still aspire to, you know, you wear a T-shirt or whatever because it says something about what you aspire to. So that was always kind of the plan for Crowned Heads, is we wanted to be an aspirational brand, and the whole carve your own path mantra to inspire other people to say, you know, if these two knuckleheads in Nashville can do a premium cigar company, I can do whatever I think I can do, and just go for it, you know.
Yeah. If you're passionate about something.
100%. Yes. Absolutely.
Well, thank you again. I've said it a bunch
My
of times.
pleasure.
I can't say it enough. It's been a pleasure to have you, and I'm very honored. Whoa, there goes my poster. Wow.
That's not a good sign.
No, it could be an omen for good things. But
where are you right now? Like, what city, state, that kind of?
I'm in St. Louis, Missouri, and
okay.
I can't smoke in the house due to family disagreements.
Same.
That's fine.
Same.
But, I'm always outside. But I just Crowned Heads has been that was the brand that really opened my eyes as to what tobacco can do, and it just really got the ball rolling for me. So I'm really honored that this was my first cigar personality that was an actual.
Don't let it be your last.
Maker.
Don't let it be your last. Continue on your path and meet the guys behind the brands, and you'll find some interesting cats out there, from the Pete Johnsons to the Matt Booths.
Yes.
To the, you know what I mean? Everybody's so unique and different.
Yes.
And I can tell you that for a fact, you know, and it's interesting. It's always nice to meet the guy behind it, right? So
yes, it is.
Keep doing your thing.
More and more people want to see the person behind the brand too. So thank you again. Hope you have a great rest of your 2021. Really looking forward to all the releases that are coming out.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Peace, brother.
All right, man. Be well. Cheers.
Special thanks again to Jon Huber. Had a great interview with him. Really appreciate him taking the time to sit down with Jonose Cigars. Hope you enjoyed the interview. I will be posting it up on the channel, so even if you weren't able to be here for the live stream, you can always catch up on it later. So thank you for tuning in. For those of you who are there, hope you have a great rest of your week. Smoke a good one, guys.